As the so-called first world countries continue to push the tax the rich narrative, up-and-coming countries are seeing opportunity and welcoming business that presents an opportunity for you. One of the things that we've talked about over the years here at Nomad Capitalist is that when I was born in the United States in 1984, there really weren't that many options. If you were a successful person, there weren't a lot of countries that you would want to go and live in or start a business in or invest in. But in those last 30 some years, you've seen a lot of countries come from practically zero, come from communism, and they've dramatically changed, where now the landscape is much more wide open. There are so many more options, and yet a lot of what we call the legacy brain countries don't seem to understand that. They don't seem to understand that they're now in competition with a lot of new players. And so they keep pushing tax the rich. They keep telling you you didn't build that. They keep punishing entrepreneurship and raising taxes and imposing more regulations as if you can't go anywhere else, but you can. That's the point of this channel. And so I recently talked to my friend George Gammon about how you have a lot of these up-and-coming countries that have said, no, we don't want to raise taxes, or even we're lowering taxes because we want to attract people like you to come. And so I'm going to share with you a clip that I think will be worthwhile to change your perspective and help you realize that there are plenty of options in the world. If it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consultancy that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors who want to legally reduce their taxes overseas, who want to protect their assets, and who want to have dual citizenship to make sure they have options in these crazy times. I'm also the host of the world's biggest and best offshore conference called Nomad Capitalist Live, at which George Gammon will be speaking this year. Here's what we talked about the competition among countries.
Now let's talk about steps in the wrong direction. And I know I listened to your podcast. It's fantastic. Everyone's got to check it out. It's just Nomad Capitalist. And you really have your finger on the pulse of what's happening with the kind of tax narrative in the United States.
Yeah.
And how we really see that changing in areas, not just in California, but at a federal level. So what's going on with taxes? And I think even most Americans don't realize what's happening there as far as how the tides are kind of changing and how this view towards taxing the rich is becoming more and more and more popular.
Well, define the rich, by the way. I mean, your stomping grounds, my old stomping grounds in Arizona, if you make $250,000 now, they almost doubled your state income tax. $250,000 in this environment is the evil rich. I mean, you got to be kidding me. But, I repeat a phrase from a friend of mine who lives here in Eastern Europe. He says, I never look in someone else's pocket. There are certain places where that, I think, is still the case. But I follow Bernie Sanders. Every post is how people are being left behind. And yet Bernie Sanders doesn't consider the fact that, my example, I'm going to be in Malaysia when they reopen. Look at Malaysia in 1990. Go back and look at pictures. It was a real mess. Look at Singapore before that. Look at South Korea. And look at them now. Those people are now employing people. I mean, I've stumbled upon Eastern Europe. We have 3 offices that we're about ready to move into. You're in Colombia. Would you have hired in Colombia in 1985? No. But the narrative is there must be something wrong with these people who aren't doing everything Bernie Sanders wants. People are having to be competitive. You can't just, graduate from high school with a C- average and go and work at a factory and make $60,000 a year back when $60,000 was even more money. And so people are upset and they're angry. And imagine that your audience and my audience doesn't even understand the realities of how real estate and all this stuff works, passports, right? What's the average person? What's the average voter thinking? All they know is they're scared. The country has changed. There aren't as many opportunities. And they want to punish someone because they want their stuff, combined with this kind of younger entitlement mentality of everything's a human right, cancel rent, cancel mortgages, cancel everything. I don't think you turn that ship around until you hit the iceberg first. I think that the countries that have hit the iceberg are the places where you get out, whether it's finances or whether it's freedom. They're like, yeah, we're not going to go back to that. But the U.S. I used to call it the Paris Hilton of countries. I mean, how do you convince someone who just has always had money for the taking and never remembers why it's there because it was so far back? How do you change that until you hit rock bottom?
And talk about this push towards not just a wealth tax, but even more insanely, a unrealized cap gains tax.
There's so many of these. I don't know how many times California has brought back another wealth tax proposal. One of the things that I'd be concerned about, by the way, is retroactive taxes. Look at what happened, by the way, not under Biden, not under Obama, but under Trump. A retroactive tax that went back 3 decades and said, you know what? We actually do want you to pay on that. So I don't think it matters who's in power. But yeah, wealth taxes. California wants that. I guess Elizabeth Warren wants that. The numbers always come down. In the UK, they were talking about £500,000 they wanted to do it. In South Africa, they were talking about 7% a year, as high as that. I saw one other country, I forget where, that wanted a one-time 20% wealth tax. So they're getting pretty egregious. I mean, just even if you scale that back a lot, it's still not great. But yeah, unrealized capital gains. And I mean, you look at these companies. This is your space, George. Look at Peloton. Look at PayPal. Look at all these companies that were the darling. And I've been seeing your tweets about the Kathy Arks of the world. I mean, look at these companies that were the darling of the pandemic, and now they're back to exactly where they were or below. What do? Do they give you all your money back? I mean, it's. And by the way, the government created an environment where you couldn't go to the gym, so people said, hey, I'm going to order a Peloton. And now they're angry that those businesses expanded and hired people at a difficult time. This is my biggest frustration. I'm an employer. I have people all around the world. When COVID started, I said, listen, we're financially strong. Business grew. But regardless of that, we're going to keep everybody on the team. And I think that was the right thing to do. But then to say, well, hey, we became successful because of their stupid policies and business grew. Hey, listen, don't blame me. Of course business is trying to become more successful. But nobody wants to hear that anymore because the entrepreneurial spirit has been sucked out, unlike in places like Turkey, like India, like somebody like Colombia even.
Talking about taxes, one thing that's in the news recently in the United States, it just shows the absolute hypocrisy of these politicians and I dislike both parties equally. I'm sure, I think you fall into that category as well. But a lot of the Elizabeth Warren types, let's say, are wanting to reduce the gas tax. To give people a break. Basically, they're trying to buy votes. So these are all the people that say that if we don't do something about moving to electrification, that we're all going to be dead in 10 years. But, let's go ahead and pull back this gas tax. It's just the level of hypocrisy is astonishing. And the fact that people still put their faith and confidence in these politicians never ceases to amaze me.
Well, my favorite, by the way, and I was walking down kind of a side street earlier today, and I'm stepping over a couple of masks on the street. Whatever you think about that, the party that was most in favor was like, hey, we got to be for the environment. Listen, I happen to be very much for the environment. I try not to, waste stuff. I'm avoiding plastics at all costs. I mean, listen, we don't have to be ridiculous. I don't think we have to tax people. That, of course, everything they want to do is a tax. But hey, listen, if I could just organically have less of an impact, I'll do that. But somehow that's not cool anymore, right? I mean, the thing of let's not put tons of new crap in landfill. No, forget that. That's like yesterday's cause. So of course it's hypocrisy, and of course it's. By the way, 62% last year of Americans paid zero federal income tax, and they'll go out and tell you that they're tax-paying citizens and that Elon Musk is the devil, and that I'm a traitor for leaving the system. I don't worry about their taxes anymore, but I think other people probably should. I don't know how, with all of the macro environment now, your taxes can go anywhere but up. There's no room to do otherwise. And it's going to become this income inequality of tax inequality, where 80% of people will pay nothing and everyone else will go back to some, Eisenhower level rates.